Another interesting piece of cut content from Fallout 4 is the quest 20 Leagues Under the Sea. The quest is a play on the words referencing a book and movie series 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which would likely have the same premise, where the hero travels deep underwater to fight and slay a giant and mysterious squid monster. In fact, in the cut game files, we can even see an animation for this quest, which includes our favorite big whale buddy, the ghoul whale, swimming around in the background. But if we dig even more into this mystery, we start to find a lot of other peculiar references. Located at the bottom of the sea near Boston Harbor are many unused and weird buildings and assets that we never actually see in the main game. And on top of this, we can find even more weird unused assets in the game files, like textures for a giant squid, underwater vault door mesh and scaffolding, and even a fully functional and awesome harpoon gun. Even more damning though, at one point in Fallout's main story, Deacon can remark about a fantastical and crazy underwater city full of adventure, implying that he has been there before. So when putting all of this evidence together, it becomes quite clear that at some point in the development of Fallout 4, there were big plans for a massive underwater vault akin to the BioShock series, where we could have peered into the deep blue ocean from inside the vault and battled creatures like the ghoul whale and giant squids, all with new weapons and assets. It's sad that this idea never saw the day of light, because truly it would have been one of, if not the most interesting vault in the entire Fallout series, and shows just how much potential the world of Fallout has to create amazing and unique ideas. And by the way, for those of you wondering and who are particularly interested in this idea, there's actually some mods you can download that will recreate this Vault 120 and give you access to a new player home underwater, where you can experience at least some of what Bethesda had planned. A couple years ago, Pete Hines from Bethesda came out and made a statement about some theories that Fallout and Elder Scrolls take place in the same universe, and he said, "I haven't the foggiest of notion how anyone could make the leap that they are in fact part of the same thing. We made Elder Scrolls, and a completely different developer and publisher came up with Fallout, which we then acquired. No, I don't think there's any universe in which those universes are in the same universe. That's not a thing." Now, for most sane people, they would stop here and realize that this theory makes no sense. But luckily for you guys, that guy isn't me. The reason some have begun to believe Fallout and Elder Scrolls are in the same universe, though, comes down to some key findings. For example, in Fallout 4, we can find a Taboo Tattoos magazine, which on the cover has a skeleton with a very familiar-looking helmet, the one the Dragonborn dons in Skyrim. On top of this, in the Fallout 4 Nuka World DLC, players can find a giant bear statue that looks exactly like the bears from Skyrim. Checkmate, Pete. But most interestingly of all, in Prydwen, during Fallout 4, if the player enters the Scientists and Botany Quarter, they can find a very familiar looking plant called the Experimental Plant, an item that looks eerily close to Nirn roots in Elder Scrolls. This plant in Fallout also has all the same properties of Nirn roots, growing near water, healing the player, and its lovable bioluminescent glow. So could it be that after the bombs dropped in Fallout and radiation took over and destroyed the planet, that millions of years later this radiation slowly transforms the world and wildlife of Earth into the planet of Nirn, where the Elder Scrolls takes place? Maybe this is where the magic from Elder Scrolls comes from, the splitting of atomic bonds that cast our Earth into a nuclear winter, forever changing our destiny. This is complicated somewhat by the fact that Nirn in Elder Scrolls has 2 moons while Earth only has 1. But maybe in that million years, cosmic forces started to take over. Maybe like the Dunwich deity from Fallout, becoming the Daedra from Elder Scrolls. Another possibility is that a satellite sent from Earth during the Great Wars could have crash-landed on some faraway planet, that being Nirn, and that's how they relate. Either way, I can't wait for people to come up with some more random BS when Starfield comes out, for how that's connected too. Some of the coolest and most interesting quests in all of Fallout come from the earlier entries in the series, and for that reason remain largely unknown and not talked about today. But a personal favorite of mine from these is the Ghost Farm from Fallout 2. At one point in your journey, you can stumble upon a farm referred to as the Ghost Farm from locals nearby, due to apparently supernatural sightings in the area. And if you make your way to the farm, you are immediately greeted with a horrific scene. Dozens of bodies are impaled, lining the farmland with blood everywhere. But upon closer inspection, it becomes clear to the player that these bodies are nothing but scarecrows with Brahmin blood smeared on them. If you make your way to the center of the farm, you find an army of ghosts, as well as a lot of high-level guards, who, if you surrender to, take you down to a secret underground city beneath the farm. It's here you learn that the people of this farm have actually lived underground now for years, and have trouble even dealing with sunlight, hence why no other nearby towns know of their presence, as the underground dwellers only come out at night to tend to the farm, and hide underground during the day. You learn that the ghosts are nothing but dressed up guards, and that the reason these underground peoples have done this is to protect their farmland from intruders who are scared of coming based on its haunted origins. Deep in their underground city, you are also able to find a room full of missing children from a nearby town called Modak, which coincidentally the leader of the underground peoples wants you to deliver a message to. The quest has a ton of different possibilities and outcomes, including telling the people of Modak about the lost children, who in turn storm the underground lair, and it results in everyone dying and dooming both civilizations, as well as ways to save both towns and make everybody happy. One of the most interesting things, though, is that some of the sound effects in the lair beneath the farm are eerily similar to some sound effects we hear from the Deep Ones from Elder Scrolls Oblivion, another theory I spoke about on my Elder Scrolls iceberg. Could it be that these ghost farm people are actually in talks with the same demented and evil beings known as the Deep Ones from the Elder Scrolls? Considering I made this theory up after hearing two vaguely similar sounding sound effects from the two games made by separate studios, probably not, but don't ruin this for me. In the Fallout universe, one of the most horrific things that can happen to a human being is called ghoulification. After the bombs fell and the entire world was covered in nuclear radiation, many people started to succumb to this horror. Some people are turned into a naked mole rat human hybrid that still retains full consciousness and ability for speech and communication, while others are transformed into what we know as feral ghouls, which act much more like rabid animals who want nothing but to kill. Throughout the games, we meet many of each type of these ghouls who have undergone ghoulification, but we never truly get an explanation as to what exactly is happening. For example, there's a small shack in Fallout New Vegas where we can find a man who is trying to turn himself into a ghoul to study the effects of this ghoulification, but in the process simply died from radiation poisoning. So why is it that some people die from the nuclear fallout, while others turn into ghouls with all their mental capacities still there, and even furthermore, then some people turn into nothing but rabid, huskless killers? The best guess we have so far is that there's some sort of gene that some humans in the Fallout franchise have that results in them turning into ghouls when exposed to radiation, while others simply are killed from its side effects. Some believe that all ghouls eventually turn feral and aggressive, while others think that even feral ghouls can be brought back. It spawns an interesting discussion into what ghouls really are, and whether they are truly still human or not, as well as what exactly is causing this process to occur. Anyone who has played Fallout 4 has become accustomed to seeing these buzzkills. Strung all throughout the world, the Fallout 4 mannequins have a very strange and creepy feeling to them. Often you will find them in the corners of rooms in weird, almost human-like positions. And sometimes enemy synths will even try to disguise and blend in with the mannequins, making every time you encounter some especially anxiety-inducing. However, the most horrifying moment with the mannequins actually occurs in the Far Harbor DLC, where the player can find a sunken boat off the coast, and inside an army of mannequins. Even more than usual, these mannequins are in very peculiar and lifelike poses, with some staring out of the windows and others seemingly talking amongst each other. The worst offender of them, though, is a specific mannequin that can be found holding a machete over the dead body of one of the crew members. And nearby this perplexing scene, we find a note that states, "I can't wait to drop these damn mannequins off. The crew is starting to claim that they are hearing weird noises from the cargo. Maybe they are playing pranks on me? Whatever, we are almost there. This entire shipwreck heavily implies that the mannequins of Fallout 4 are in fact more than meets the eye. Fallout has had its fair share of controversy throughout its tenure as a game franchise. But one of the less well-known and controversial issues revolves around a rejected Fallout 2 perk image for the perk Child Killer. You see, back in the day, Fallout was a pretty hardcore franchise. In the first 2 games, you could kill innocent civilians, slaughter children, force droves of crying hostages into slavery, and watch torture unfold before your very eyes. At the time, this resulted in a lot of backlash from even the United States Supreme Court, especially because violent video games were a hot topic issue at the time. But even for these daring developers who put so many mature themes in their game, one symbol had to be cut from the sequel. In Fallout 1 and 2, if you kill multiple children in-game, you get a reputation that stays with you for the rest of the playthrough, that decreases your speech or reaction skills upon first meeting good and evil NPCs, and gives a random chance for bounty hunters to appear on the map trying to take you out for your evil deeds. Originally, the effect was supposed to be represented in-game by this symbol, but for obvious reasons, this was eventually removed from the game, as the designers all decided that the iconography had gone way too far. Honestly, nowadays, I think they could probably get away with this, as it's more of just a funny illustration. But back in the day, this was not a risk the Fallout devs were willing to take, especially when other similar games were getting cancelled entirely in fear of the US government intervening. In Fallout 3, at one point on your quest to get a GECK, a terraforming device created by Future Tech, a division of Vault Tech, you might stumble upon the infamous Vault 87. When first trying to enter the vault, you will notice just outside the location there are many radiation warning signs, suggesting that this vault was outputting a lot of radiation even before the bombs dropped. And if you actually try to go towards the 2 entrances of the vault, you will be killed immediately by the immense amount of radiation you immediately are pummeled with. Luckily though, if you make your way back to Lamplight City, a giant underground town full of children who lost their parents after they all tried to go to the surface to get help, you are told about a supposed murder pass that you can cross to get to Vault 87 from the underground. The children of Lamplight had previously explored deeper into the underground cave systems and found the vault, but the inhabitants on the other side said to turn back because they were already doomed. So if you find one of the 2 ways into the vault, either through a computer terminal or by fighting your way through an army of super mutants guarding the door, you eventually get to the entrance. When you first enter the vault, you are met with a buffet of mutilated bodies and corpses. And if you find one of the terminals at the entrance, you read the story of a man who slowly descends into insanity, watching his children and those around him die. As you make your way further into the vault, you find a host of gore bags, used by the super mutants to serve other humans as food. And you find more terminals that express that many people in the vault had no idea what was actually going on at the time, and were confused. Journal entries note that there were many power surges, weird experiments, and strange sounds many of the early residents complained about. And you eventually even find a terminal entry that notes 93 people have died in the vault, with 83 being listed under a strange and mysterious, unidentifiable death condition. If you manage to make your way even deeper into this twisted vault, you are met with multiple bloody handprints, scenes of horror, and finally, a room where you can find multiple testing chambers full of dead, early-generation super mutants. The scientists in the vault were experimenting on the human inhabitants by dousing them with high amounts of FEV radiation, also known as the Force Evolutionary Virus, which was the virus spawned out of developing a cure for the new plague. These deadly doses had transformed many of the inhabitants into absolute monstrosities known as super mutants, the first generation of their kind, with many having busted limbs, small lower bodies and massive upper bodies, and other weird disfigurements. You discover that there was something known as EEP testing going on here, otherwise known as the Evolutionary Experimentation Program, and that the male and female test subjects were being exposed to insanely high amounts of FEV radiation in order to study the effects, which turned most of the vault dwellers into asexual and imperfect supermutants. Eventually, these supermutants became enraged at the horrible testing they had undergone and led an assault against the vault, killing the remaining members. And it can even be discovered at the end of the vault that the FEV radiation we discovered outside was actually done on purpose by Vault Tech, to test the effects of FEV on nearby surrounding towns as well. A truly unbelievable experiment that truly went too far.